Welcome to Exit the Matrix, Stories of Success with your host, Jane Slack-Smith, where we celebrate the incredible journeys of individuals who've transcended their limitations and achieved extraordinary success.
Hello, it's Jane Slack-Smith here, and welcome to today's episode of Exit the Matrix. Now, this is a podcast dedicated to exploring life's most transformational moments, and it's my immense pleasure to introduce a very special guest today, Anne Curtis, a true changemaker and an innovator in consumer and community engagement. Now, before we jump in, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about her, and I'm going to then walk through with her the success story that she's had, where she's actually created that sliding door moment and taking an opportunity to redirect her life. Now, Anne's remarkable career began in Queensland's healthcare sector, where she adapted the kitchen table discussion methodology. Now, with this nationally recognised approach, she helped to facilitate 391 community-led discussions and yarning circles. This went beyond traditional facilitation, empowering communities to lead their own consultations on health service autonomously, thereby ensuring authentic and invaluable feedback on healthcare needs and reforms. Her exceptional skills in community engagement and consultation were further demonstrated through her work with the Queensland Health and Correctional Services. Over 6 years, Anne personally met with over 200 incarcerated men and women, gaining insights into their healthcare experiences. Her dedication to improving service delivery led to the co-design and facilitation of workshops on prisoner healthcare rights for over 200 staff members across Queensland Health and Queensland Corrective Services. Now, Anne's influence extended to digital health as well, where she played a pivotal role in developing a digital health consumer charter for Queensland in consultation with around 300 health consumers. This groundbreaking project resulted in Australia's first and possibly the world's first charter of its kind. Today, we're here to uncover another facet of Anne's journey, a significant change in direction that promises to be as impactful as her previous endeavours. Welcome to the podcast, Anne.
Oh, thank you, Jane. It's such a pleasure to be here with you this morning.
Look, what amazes me about your story and why I was just so excited to have you here as a guest is that, you as a corporate person, you had this incredible impact on so many people and communities in, teaching people how to facilitate having a voice and putting out their needs. But things changed for you, didn't they? So I'm really interested in what was the sliding door moment for you?
Well, Jane, there's always a moment when you go, oh, it's time to step out. And so I did that. I walked away from work I truly loved and valued and, what we achieved together. And I stepped out into the void, basically, no income and thinking, oh, what am I going to do with myself? No, I'm not going to retire, as people think. I'm not my age. I have enormous ability. I have a mind that works. And I decided that I'm going to invest in me, because what happened was I started to feel this sense of joy. This joy just would keep coming and coming. And it was just that realization, there's some whole new direction for me to go in. And so taking that joy, I thought, okay, I'm investing in me. And for the next 6 months, last year, I did about 500 hours of study, which was really around relearning, reinforming a lot of what I already knew or had been in my past, but gave me that ability to completely change direction and to find a way forward instead of staying where I was and where I thought I was going to be, possibly at this stage in life.
There's a lot of bravery, for people of a certain age where everyone thinks you're about to retire, that you go, well, I've got a well-paying job, there's money coming in, there's some retirement funds going to be sitting there, and you go, actually, no, my joy is elsewhere. Tell me about the training you did, and particularly, what that has brought you to today.
So I actually did 3 lots of training in that time. One, I did a master practitioner of energy medicine through the Four Winds School in the US. So that was a 6-month commitment of being up at 3 a.m. every week for 2 hours. But I loved it because it just brought back that side of me that's always been there and has been in my past very much, of doing healing work, of being a facilitator. At the same time, out of the blue came the natural success work with William Whitecloud. And, I went to this 5-day free training with William and suddenly realized, well, I'm actually learning sort of similar across 2 things, but from very different perspectives. And this is waking up what I thought my intuition had really gone, but it just brought it back. So I carried on. And through to mastery, with natural success, and have found myself in the most extraordinary place with the most incredible people, and loving every aspect of it. And then at the same time, my other love that I have is around the rites of the moon key, which are initiations, and through the shaman in Peru, and also very similar to the Four Winds work, obviously very involved. And combining all of that, I went through as a teacher in that, and it was magical. And then, that was, I stepped into that, into investing in me.
What I love about that is that, we've had conversations. I've actually had the pleasure of working with Anne, and we've had these conversations about what you perceived as there was a corporate side of you, this incredibly successful career in giving people the skills to facilitate a community consultation so they have a voice in changes they're making. And then you had this joy moment where you said, no, I'm going to spend 500 hours investing in myself. And you went through and you had this entire kind of, no, I'm going to stop this and move on. That's in my past. And then I hear you saying, I really was doing energy healing and actually giving people this voice, although it seemed like a corporate, how to speak your truth and how to, engage and have meaningful conversations. You then went back and went, actually, it's all energy.
Yes.
So now there's kind of this crossover point, right, where you go, well, maybe I didn't turn the corporate light off. Because I think for people who listen to this podcast, often we sit there and we go, I have this career. If I'm going to go for my heart and what I enjoy, I have to cut everything off. So if you think back to those beautiful, with the Indigenous groups, the yarning circles, and with the community groups, the kitchen table kind of selections, I imagine there's a point before that where people need to have also an understanding of where they're coming from. Could you talk to that and how you're helping corporates now doing that as well?
So I work for an NGO with this work. So so in that, for me at that time, if I can answer it this way, I always felt that people should lead their own consultation. They should do the leading. They have the voice out there in community, and that was what that work came about. Because of that, we're capable. We're all capable, and that's valuable. But I would see things, and I would hear from people, I can't do that. I can't be a host. Who am I? I'm not a facilitator. I'm not a trainer. How do I bring people together? And it's like, well, basically it's that saying of who you're not to do this. And then I had that breakthrough moment, as you say, Jane, where I thought I would cut from that world. But, there is just so many opportunities for bringing that voice out, that, you have a purpose. You want to say something. You want to be somewhere. You want to put your voice there, and you know, it's now turning into that, and I think that's for anyone, let alone people who want to take a role on a committee within an organisation like a government body. But just finding what is this that stops you from actually taking that step and thinking that it's not you, and why should you be there, and what about all these people who are so professional, and I don't know, I don't have these skills. But you know, it's about authenticity. You know, when you come from that perspective of authenticity, and you're in truth, then yeah, it's potent, it's powerful.
You know, it makes me think, you know, way back in my youth, I worked for a multinational company, and every 3 to 5 years there'd be a new CEO, and they'd bring in their change management teams, and they'd put us into focus groups. And I was so excited. I'd be like, oh my gosh, we can make these changes. And you'd be put into a group, and there was always kind of a bit of a hierarchy where, you know, you had a mid manager, you had a operational manager, then you had some people who did the grunt work, and then you had the admin in between. And you know, I'd turn up to these things full of these ideas, and the management would go, no, no. And at that stage, I felt I didn't have the power. And so I just was quiet. And the management that had been the management all along with the management ideas put their new management ideas in place, which are kind of like just a tiny pivot on the old ones, and nothing ever changed. We get a new CEO because we didn't have a good income, and they do another change management. And what strikes me is there is this point within corporates and within our own personal lives where we need to know where we're coming from. We have, you know, potentially we have an awareness point, but there's also, as you say, almost a healing point where you go, well, where did that kind of powerlessness come from? Why am I keeping my mouth closed? And, you know, I think, you know, knowing some of the work that you do individually with people and with corporates, what do you think when you talk to people, and you've spoken to over 200 people in jails, let's be honest, who feel that their voice has been minimised? What is the kind of most common reason why people feel that they can't speak their truth, or they can't make a contribution, or they can't be a facilitator, or it's not in them?
You know, it varies with the person. Their voice isn't important. No one would want to hear from them. They've said it a million times and no one's heard. So, I think there's a double side to this too, because I was lucky that I worked with, you know, Queensland Health and other NGO organisations and other government bodies with this work, who actually were really open to hearing the truth and hearing what was being said. And that's the power, is both sides. So even though, you know, we may think, you know, my voice is not important, and I've been there, I've experienced that myself, you know, like you, you close down. But when you've got, you know, but we don't think that anyone wants to hear from us. But when we realise we're actually being heard, like these organisations would hear from people, and change would happen, and people were thrilled. It was like, oh, you know, I'm heard. Someone hears me. And people get so frustrated when they think they're not being heard. And then sometimes you don't come from the right perspective. So, you know, it is a two-way street. You've got to want to be heard, or you want to, you know, have your voice heard. But the organisation that information's going to, they've got to want to hear that voice. And that's where the power is, when you come to that meeting point.
And what I love about, you know, this kind of, you know, you say you followed your joy, you know, never stop believing in yourself. You've thrown away this job in your mind. You've made this commitment. And now, you know, where you are is that you do work with people to help understand the voice and have a voice and understand others' voices and have that. But then there's a deeper level, isn't it, that you do healing, and there's actually, for some people, there is actually a certain amount of healing. I'd love you just to talk to, you know, that deeper type of work that you do as well.
Yeah, in my, the healing practice. So I'm a facilitator because we do our own healing.
Mm.
And, but basically my work is, so much, comes up where people feel they have a lump in their throat. I've always felt I've got this blockage in my throat and I don't know what it is. And I've spoken to doctors, there's nothing there. It's their voice. It's like there's something packed in here and they don't have to express what's happening to them. And whether that's, it's staying quiet. Sometimes it's actually staying in an unhealthy situation or a relationship. Because if you open this up and you speak out of here, gosh, you don't know what's going to come, or it's come from our childhood where we were told to be quiet. There's so many different ways. And so my work is, from that perspective is to help find what that is. What has happened in your childhood, in your teen years, in your adulthood, whenever it is, that this, your voice or your heart, and what's in your solar plexus, your fears, where are they in that physical body? And it's about helping to move that out, which opens the way then for, new beginnings.
Now, a quick word from our sponsor, Your Success Club. Your Success Club is a group of vibrant, abundance seekers. If you subscribe to exitthematrix.io, we are going to drop you into the club room, which has lots of goodies, resources, and a free gift just for subscribing. Now, back to the podcast. Well, let me just take you back to that sliding door moment. You've made the decision to make the change. I imagine there was a little anxiety or, no income, etc. Could you just talk to what were the most significant challenges and obstacles you faced and how you were dealing with those on a daily basis?
It's really interesting because, I went through those moments of what am I doing? Oh, my God, think about, and I would go into the age thing. Oh, what am I doing at this age? I don't have an income and I had a really good income and I've still got all this, life happens. And I thought, something, even if it takes whatever I have, I will do what I want to do to create what I want to create. And then I went into peace about it, and that's the thing is I didn't go into struggle. Yeah, sometimes it'll come up, but I look at it and I think, well, is that where I want to go? And it's been quite amazing, at times, I'll think, oh my God, there's this massive, big bill coming through and where's the money for that? And then, it kind of just turns up in odd ways. And I think, well, wow, it's part of that, belief system, that I'm taking this path. It's a journey I'm on. I'm going to trust the process and I'll be supported.
Mm. Yeah, and that belief in what you're creating and coming from the position of service to others, it always astounds me every time I speak to someone when they're having these sliding door moments. Often what is at the base of that is that I have a bigger contribution to make and a service to others. And so can you talk about today? How are things today? How's life changed since you exited the Matrix?
Well, in that time that I also, went through a program as part of one of the trainings with a grow a new body, and I decided, time to grow a new body, and brain, because also the brain's in there. And, I shifted, sort of 15 kilos and I'm back in that process again now to do the next stage, keep the brain alive and active, and the body moving. I went through so much, I let my hair go grey. I let go. I let go of the things that I was holding on where I thought I had to be. And now, I have this practice where I love being a healing facilitator. I love the energy work. I just love energy. and I love giving that, and that's where I am. But my mind, my brain is going, and I've got these ideas, and and it's like, yes, I'm having a retreat in July, which is fantastic, and it's and I've got opportunities that are just coming, and the doors are opening, and it's and I'm holding this space, and for whatever creates, and I don't have a definite line. This is the path I'm going down, and I'm not moving from that, because that stops me here. Whereas when I allow myself to go, yeah, I was heading in that track, but this track is now really strong. I'm now going in that track.
So it's
I'm
about
allowing
being in
it.
the now and not in the how.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, look, you mentioned the retreats that you run. I know that you've got one in July 2024. You run them regularly if you're listening to this podcast in the future. The next one's in the hinterlands in Queensland. Tell us a little bit about the retreats and how you help facilitate people's healing and journey.
Well, the one that I'm doing in July, with the 19th to the 22nd of July, is the rites of the Moonai Key. So there are 10 rites to the Moonai Key. And this has come out of Peru from the Kero shaman. And, this is about change on the planet. We're all responsible for what happens to our planet, what happens to our world. And these are initiations into a beautiful way of being, and it's incredible energy. But what I'm doing in the retreat is not only giving, the rights to the people who come, but also training them how to pass the rights on. But I'm also bringing together the food that they will eat in this retreat is around growing a new body and brain. And so it'll be no sugar. All organic. Some of it's going to be grown on the actual land. It's going to be a luxurious retreat, but not in the accommodation. It's the land, and the feeling in the Glasshouse Mountains is such a beautiful area. And it's going to be very much, outdoors, because, even in winter in Queensland, it's just stunning. So it is the healing for everyone that comes, and it's an awakening, and that's very important as well, that awakening side.
There's so many aspects to Anne Curtis, as you can hear. You can contact her on luminosityenergyhealing.com, sign up for her newsletter, tips, reach out to her about her retreats for her energy healing, which can be done online or in person. She has many programs: Awaken the Spark, The Voice on Purpose, Embody Your Genius, to help you grow and know your own voice and where you're coming from. And obviously she does a lot of corporate work as well in helping people, but it's all around changing your story and being aware of it. So, and I really appreciate it. And before we go, just for fun, I always ask people to tell us something really cool or unusual or different or unique or bizarre about yourself.
I cooked dinner for Gough Whitlam when he was retired from as Prime Minister of Australia, and he was being painted by a well-known artist in Victoria, Clifton Pugh, for the Archibald Prize, and I'd been asked to come up and cook dinner and stay for dinner. He was so hungry from his day of painting. He had his he was fingers into the frying pan, and, what's for dinner, and, eating. Absolutely delightful man to spend time with him. And yes, so most people don't know that. That was my cooking side. That's my creative side. So
another part of Anne. Well, thank you very much, Anne. I really appreciate your time today and, sharing your story with everyone.
Jane, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be with you. And thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Anne. And look, just before we go, if you like this episode, I would be so grateful if you would leave us a 5-star review. Now, you can only do that on Apple iTunes. Go to the episode, scroll to the bottom. Hopefully you're logged in. Leave us a review and 5 stars. Let's hack that algorithm and beat the Matrix at its own game. And that will allow us to share these inspirational stories with even more people. And whilst you are there, please recommend the podcast to to other people, because after all, sharing is caring. And then head over and subscribe at exitthematrix.io. Right now, I have an incredible gift just for subscribing, and I can keep you up to date with future guests. So that's it from me. Thank you so very much for listening to Exit the Matrix. And as always, here's to your success.
Thank you for listening to Exit the Matrix, Stories of Success. Make sure you subscribe to future episodes at www.exitthematrix.io. Until next time, here's to your success.